Coach leadership is a leadership style that brings three potent practices together: the principles of coaching mastery, infused with the latest scientific and industry knowledge about human behaviour, for example, motivation and productivity, and progressive leadership practices like servant leadership. What makes this combination so powerful is that it builds and protects a culture that is supportive, collaborative, and unlocks the individual's own desire to grow, excel, and contribute in ways that prove to be collectively beneficial for the team and the organisation. Where conventional approaches emphasise directive and control-based methods, coach leadership is all about empowering your team members, so direct reports, peers, customers, and even your boss, empowering them to design their own approaches as appropriate to the situation. So instead of being prescriptive about how to do something, as in conventional leadership styles, a coach leader would ask, "How do you think we should tackle this?" For coach leaders, the best outcome is when team members design their own approach to a task or project they're given, because it means they more fully own all the aspects that come up: designing the approach, solving issues, improving processes to avoid obstacles in the future, and growing from their own personal learning curve. Directive and control based leadership often means leaders will step in and fix stuff, something I see a lot of leaders doing, which, while it might feel like the only option when things go wrong, is massively disempowering of our people, as well as poor use of leadership time. And as well as creating bottlenecks, which are a risk, they're basically saying to their team member, "I don't trust you to do this work." It can result in the team member experiencing complete loss of confidence and, for sure, a detachment from the work and its outcomes and results. Once trust is breached, it's a really hard place to come back from. And when these limiting behaviours happen repeatedly, it can have serious consequences like team dysfunction or people leaving. Where most leaders default to telling people what to do to fix something, coach leaders, by comparison, stand alongside the person who owns the approach, their direct report, for example, and supports them through inquiry, deep listening for things they say and don't say, the person's choice of words, their body language and energy, and so on. And by stress testing ideas collaboratively to work out how the person is going to resolve a problem. Coach leaders ask these types of questions. What have you already thought about doing to resolve this? What are the risks or limitations of taking that approach? What do you need from me to clear the path? How can I best support you to do that? That's how coach leaders place the person at the centre of the solution. These questions signal and reinforce to the person that the coach leader trusts them to come up with the best approach. Now, do coach leaders also need to be directive? Yes, of course they do, but they replace control-based approaches with coaching techniques that amplify the team members' motivation, ownership, and personal gain. For coach leaders, this is about doing less heavy lifting. You don't always have to have the answers. Sometimes it's better if you don't. I've had many leaders come back and report that when they've taken this approach, they've been blown away. Their direct report came up with solutions they never would have thought of. That's innovation, that's ownership, that contributes to growing the capability of your team. The more your direct report spends time exploring in a safe, supportive space, exploring their different ideas, the stronger the solution and the greater their emotional attachment to working towards the best outcome. Bingo. The secret to accountability is to give full ownership of something, warts and all, and embrace that approach consistently. Coach leaders resist stepping in and taking over, unless, of course, it's a crisis situation. And instead, they support the person to keep owning their approach, anticipating mistakes, course correcting, and working out the best way forward. Even in a crisis situation, coach leaders loop back with the team member or whole team once the crisis has passed, and they review together what happened, dissecting what everyone can learn from it. They would say something like, "Thank you for letting me step in that way. It wasn't ideal, but we needed to manage the risk quickly. What do you think we can learn from what happened?" And a little further into the exploration, they might ask, "What can we do to prevent it happening again?" In this way, coach leaders create willing accountability. The behaviour that every leader wants in their team. Given more freely, willing accountability is where people are self-motivated to step up their game because they know their boss is not going to undermine them or take away their responsibilities at the first hurdles. So, when we as team members can contribute this way, owning the whole thing, mistakes and all, we trust our boss more. It builds our confidence to keep growing and contributing to our team. Because it feels good, we feel respected and valued. Of course, a big part of creating accountability is learning to read the energy, blockers, and motivation levels in your direct report. I go more into that in my video on the Who energy model that I teach in my CPD course, Leaders Who Coach. For clarity, coach leadership is not the same as a coach partnering one-to-one with a leader, where the intervention might be at best once a week, but often once a month, to address a very specific issue. Coach leaders themselves are trained to apply their powerful combination of coach leadership skills from one meeting to the next. Quick recap: coaching mastery, human behaviour, and progressive leadership practices. Think about how many conversations a leader has in a day, and you can start to appreciate the number of times a coach leader could have a powerful impact on an individual or a team each day, each week. I'm not discounting the value of one-to-one coaching interventions. I am just such an intervener. I have my own flavour of coaching, which includes imparting coaching secrets and techniques to my leader clients. But when you evaluate the impact to organisations day to day and the people in those organisations, it's hard to ignore the data. One coaching intervention per week or 20 or more coaching conversations each week per leader. And that's not including the short 5-minute spot coaching that I train leaders who coach to do. So imagine the impact that could have on your team, your organisation, your customers. Now that's exciting. Coming up next, how is coach leadership different from pure coaching? Keep watching. Also, check the comments for my video, The 7 Signatures of Coaching Cultures, to start imagining what your organisation could look and feel like. Coach leadership is distinctly different from pure coaching because coach leaders are operating in and responsive to operational and commercial pressures. That means striking the right balance between coaching and directing in nuanced ways, often in the moment and the same conversation. How is coach leadership different from pure coaching? In delivering pure coaching, a coach is not typically involved in day-to-day tasks and operations, has a limited view of the organization's strategic challenges and stakeholders, has no managerial or supervisory responsibility over the coachee, and is solely focused on the leader's personal and professional development. The relationship between the coach and the coachee is a partnership characterized by a non-directive, client-centered approach. Now, coach leaders also put a team member at the center of the approach or solution, that is, supporting the person to design their own actions based on their own motivations and value sets. But they also need to be directive at key moments in order to meet organizational goals. So, as well as coaching, they need to mentor, supervise, and manage performance. They're constantly balancing the needs of the individual with the needs of the team and the organization. That's the reality of their context. Coach leaders have multifaceted exchanges. Tension is normal, it's how you respond that matters. Yes, there is tension in leading. Not all needs can be met. So, trust and transparency are prized currencies for leaders in their relationships because some needs are more important than others at specific points in time. Opportunities cannot always be equitably offered to everyone. Budgets and service agreements determine the scope and remit of what is possible, important, or a priority. The operational and commercial pressures that coach leaders navigate mean that sometimes they need to be more directive and tactical, and sometimes they need to be growth focused, challenging individual team members to think bigger and being supportive and empathetic in regard to a team member's dilemma or issue. Knowing how to show up in different situations needs two things. First of all, a desire from the leader themselves to show up better, stronger, and more influential. And secondly, a willingness to experiment, because it's through experimentation and making mistakes, supported by expert tutoring, that leaders overcome their fear of doing things differently. Leaders are not going to apply skills that really make a difference, no matter how powerful those techniques are, if they don't have their own first-hand experience of that skill or technique working for them, where it matters, when it matters. And that's what makes my CPD program, Leaders Who Coach, different to any other program. While you're on the course journey, we help you replace bad experiences with better ones in a safe and supportive learning environment. You get real-time applied practice of coach leadership skills with the very people you rely on to deliver results. It is a magical experience, one that leaders describe as transformational, life-changing, and the secret sauce to high-performing businesses. And if you'd like to hear the personal shifts and experiences of leaders who've graduated from Leaders Who Coach, then check the comments for the link to that playlist on YouTube.